Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a subject we've talked about already, I think in the past.
Yeah, we've mentioned it for sure.
Yes,
yeah.
But it's definitely one of those things that is very seasonal and is worth kind of revisiting. That's the word that I'm looking for, revisiting from time to time because it just happened. So, and I'm assuming you've read the title already, so you know. That being said, let's just pour some batchy.
Sick.
Let's get into this.
Yeah.
Haven't had actually too much coffee today. A
Listen,
brew day. Bro, what's going on? The journey.
Do you think Journey listens to our podcast?
Oh, slow down. Slow down.
Do you think Journey listens to our podcast?
I don't know. Journey, do you listen to our podcast?
Hey, shoot us a DM, because I'm doing the. Dude, what year was the Journey pour phenomenon?
I don't know.
Did I spill? Dude, don't tell me I spilled. I splashed. I don't spill. I splash. Dude, that sounds like it could be like a good dubstep song.
What?
I don't spill. I splash. I don't spill. I splash.
All dubsteps, just random things getting yelled into the microphone.
Dude, I love it, dude.
I think this is a bad brew. Plus, I mixed coffees. I mixed coffees, gotcha. Multiple coffees together. That shouldn't be mixed. But I was hoping I could just make it at least somewhat.
Make a blend?
Somewhat.
Are you practicing for our blend drop?
I don't know. I guess.
No, this is bad, dude. I don't think I want to drink it. This is so bad. I don't think I want to drink it.
Well, that's what's for batch on this episode of the Coffee Roaster.
It's like y'all don't get to know what was bad about it, but we're gonna cut out that, folks. Have
you nailed down your recipe for tomorrow's
competition? Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Will I share it with you? No, because we're going against each other.
I'm fine. My recipe is exactly 4 minutes and 35 seconds.
With serving, transferring it to a vessel?
And then I'm using the last 30 seconds to cool it down. And then
are you using a cool down like one of those frozen balls?
I wish. Probably would have been good.
Dude, okay, I'm just
doing a few transfers between.
For real?
Yeah. I have to. Because I've noticed that
that's smart.
Cooling it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Really makes the coffee actually taste better. Right off of brew, it's okay. Yeah. But cool down a little bit. And you have, they're going to sip. There's 2 minutes of sipping. So pretty much right when it's served at the 5 minute mark, they're going to start drinking it. So you kind of have to cool it down. I don't know. You don't have to.
Yeah. I'll tell you that my recipe is like very quick extraction. So, side note, I'm not going to really, because it's on the podcast, I'm not going to say who I talked to, but someone was in Vancouver, a good friend of ours was in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. He owns a coffee company. He doesn't own a roasting company or a cafe. He makes something that goes into coffee. Hopefully, you can read my mind right now, because I want to keep it as hidden as possible. Anyway, he said he was one of the sponsors for AeroPress before, and he said the 5 minute thing is insane. Like, he's like, there's absolutely no room for a margin of error. If you mess up, you're screwed. Like, you really have to be dialed. Worlds, he also said, are sponsored by, I shouldn't be talking about this publicly right now, but Worlds are sponsored by Comandante, as far as I know.
Nice.
That means Comandante's grinders most likely will be used at Worlds. I'm bringing my Ode because I'll be honest, I did not like my brew with the Comandante as much as I liked it with Ode. There's something about it. Same thing for Brewer's Cup. When I did Brewer's Cup, I wanted to brew with the Comandante and I didn't. And I went with the Ode. So I'm doing the same thing. I basically set up. Also, did you read that you can only use 18 grams of coffee?
Yeah, my dose is very small.
My recipe was 20 and I was like, shoot. So I had to redo my recipe based on that. So anyway, there's so much stuff that I was like, I had to redo. I'm like, I don't know.
Friends, this is the regional Canadian AeroPress Championship, which regional, if you win the regionals, you get guaranteed spot at the National, which is in, what is it, Toronto, Montreal.
There's a National.
Yeah.
I thought you go straight to Portugal.
No. The U.S. one is going to be straight to Portugal. That one's happening in Arkansas at Onyx.
So does that mean if we do good on this one, we have to go to Arkansas?
No, that means you compete in the Canadian one, the Canadian National one, which is in Toronto or Montreal, whenever it's going to be.
Oh, so that means we have to do another. This is just a qualifier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
that's wild.
But yeah, that's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow, as of the recording, not as of the drop. Friday. So it would have been probably last 26th. Week.
Damn.
So.
Dude, now I'm stressed out.
You'll yeah. Why? What's the?
I mean, I'm just gonna go and brew and whatever.
Why are you stressed out? What do you mean?
I'm stressed out that I would have to win another one.
Dude, you just go mix some bean juice. You win, you win. You lose. All right. That's it.
It sucks to fly to freaking Toronto and then go home on the first round.
Well, that sucks. Yeah, that sucks.
It's like when I went to New York. No, when I competed in Orlando and I got out in the first round. Or Brewers and like losing when you travel absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
This is fine. This is a little 45 to an hour and a half drive for us.
Just lucky. It's lucky. Yeah. Just
bring all the gear. Imagine having to pack all of your grinders, kettles. What I did for Brewers. Imagine packing 2 suitcases and then showing up and.
I mean,
dude, it sucks to suck, dude.
Unless you have like I guess depends on your gear list. It can get complicated and.
I almost brought 2 kettles because I was gonna brew with 2 different water.
That's wild. When people do that, that's wild. That's just reckless, dude. I don't know how people do that. Yeah. So
anyway,
I don't know.
It's fun. Next podcast episode will probably be talking about the AeroPress Championship.
Yeah, if we
recap it, maybe
if one of us moves on, or we can.
No, if both of us lose in the first round, there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Dude.
Yes.
The title can be clickbaity as F, dude. It can be just like how to lose a Comandante. No, we don't lose Comandante championships.
Yeah, we don't lose those.
We won one already.
Yeah. How do you?
Why the
AeroPress championships are rigged?
Yeah, dude, so clickbaity. I'm kind of here for it, dude. Yeah. That's so bad.
Okay, well, stay tuned, folks, for episode 150 something or 160.
Oh my God.
So, but yeah, that I don't know that. Yeah. So I don't know. Burnout. What do you think?
I think you're right. We mentioned Burnout. I think a few years ago or a couple of years ago we were talking about the idea of like, oh, is Burnout even a real thing? And it came up to me because I was on a Reddit thread that was talking about like I'm kind of tired of what I'm doing. And like, is this burnout? Is basically a Reddit thread talking about some aspects of what burnout looks like. And basically like when I was thinking about this whole idea, it's hard to define it. And I wanted to define it closely related to what does burnout look like in coffee. And the closest thing I came up to is doing a thing so much that it loses its shine. And I know that's very vague, but I also want to like open it up. And the other part is like doing a thing that you love so much, like doing a thing so much that it loses shine. I think there's a lot of things to dive into in that quote unquote definition. But I also think it's doing that thing without rest. And then it loses its shine, you know? So that's a thing. It's like, I was talking to Maddie about this. We were like kind of brainstorming about this episode. And one of the things that she said that really highlighted and like, oh, okay, that made a lot of sense to me. It was you do something so much that it loses its meaning. And I think meaning and shine for me have this like crossover, right? It's like, okay, when things have meaning, they're kind of bright, you know, and it's easy to quote unquote follow the light and be like, oh, inspired all the time. But when even like a bright object or something that's like super important to you kind of gets, it's still shiny, but it kind of loses the meaning behind like, oh, why are you following this? And I think those have a very strong play on it. So that's where my head was at after reading that Reddit post. And I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And to me, it's kind of a strange thing because I've been in coffee since 2016, fall of 2016. So it's coming up to be a decent amount of time. And there's an aspect of me walking into the cafe every morning, or the mornings I'm on a bar at Narrative, and dialing in coffee and feeling like super stoked. Like I have not gotten bored of dialing in coffee yet. It's been years, right? And I'm like, when does it hit, or what hits to where I just walk in the cafe and I'm like, I don't want to dial in coffee? Or when am I kind of over that fact? I don't know, because after so many years, I still feel super pumped about dialing in coffee. You know, so I was thinking about that and processing that is like, okay, but then there's other areas that I'm thinking about that I'm like, oh, I need a pause in these areas because I'm not enjoying them as much. I don't feel motivated as much. I just want to kind of do the bare minimum, just get by and then move on. So there's a combination, right? Does that make sense? Sorry, I just went on a rant. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those two things that you mentioned about doing the bare minimum, and this isn't a blanket statement. Like could be other reasons why you're doing the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. Could not be burnout. It could just be that you just hate what you do, right? Or you just don't like it, or you know, you're under maybe some bad management, right? Totally. Which doesn't justify you doing the bare minimum. Yeah. But that there's a reason, you know, but I agree that a part of burnout, a sign potentially could just be that all you want to do is just do the bare minimum, and which I think goes hand in hand with a little bit of the losing meaning or losing purpose, is because if something is still very, very purposeful for you, right, and very meaningful for you, it's very hard to do, I think, things that are meaningful to you at a bare minimum. Right. It's very hard. It's almost, contradictory. Yeah. It's almost, totally, you know, it's just like, I am trying to imagine any other scenarios that would mean that you would have something that's meaningful and you're doing the bare minimum. Yeah. And so I mean, this is stupid. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is a stupid example that just popped into my mind. Like, for example, this is very stupid, but roll with it. Play with me on this. Like, let's say, like, okay, brushing your teeth, right? Super meaningful, super important, right? Brushing your teeth, right? But there's plenty of times when you fall asleep without brushing your teeth. At least I do. Well, here's the thing. Exposing yourself on the podcast like that. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, no. I brush my teeth in the morning sometimes because I forgot. I think there's a difference between doing something because it's important to be done, and being meaningful. Or do you mean meaningful and purposeful? And meaningful too. For you and purposeful. Right. I'm seeing meaningful and purposeful just being two different words that are kind of talking about the same thing. Yeah. Where synonymous. I mean, if brushing your teeth is just not meaningful at all for you, but it's important. You're gonna do. That doesn't mean it's not important. Yeah. It just means it has no personal value for yourself, and you're just. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. You know, somebody might just not care, and so. Right. So I'm glad that's touched up on. Yeah. Which then the question about the burnout kind of is implied or hinted that what you really need to do is figure out how do you bring that shine, that meaning, the purpose. Yeah. Back into the equation. Yeah. Not necessarily that you need to drop it and run away or. Right. Yeah. How do you find the meaning behind that? It's actually more just that it's become a little meaningless to you, and you need to make it meaningful. I don't know. Or better yet, it's like what destroyed that meaning. Right. And that's the flip side. How do you avoid burnout or avoid just losing meaning? Yeah. Do you think you've ever felt burnt out? For sure. I mean, I think it's a classic it's a classic scenario of the 21st century man. And man, I mean like just human.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have. I think over the years I've gotten much better at it. Yeah. I think I've gotten much better at being able to recognize those times where it's kind of decreasing a little bit and knowing how to play that and manage that. And then also learning to, like, when you realize that, again, just because you're burnt out of something, that doesn't mean you just need to quit and run away.
Right.
And that it's all of a sudden, even though that's what you might want to be doing that in the midst of your burnout, but that's not the play. It's more figuring out, okay, how do you just bring this back and you just keep going? Yeah.
I think one of the things like I know about you is, and that I respect about you, is like you play pickleball, right? And you do stuff like, even the other day when you were at the cafe, you were with your buddy playing chess. Mm-hmm. You do things that don't necessarily contribute to your other passions. Like you basically have like a hobby and a passion that you do that doesn't contribute to, i.e. running Mirror. Mm-hmm. Or running your, marketing and content, your videography stuff. Mm-hmm. It's kind of outside of that. And it still has meaning. Like I know playing pickleball for you has meaning, has purpose. And also playing chess is like very important to you. Those are things that you value. But I think the importance of that is that you have those hobbies, you have those external activities that actually play a role in helping you prevent burnout. Because a lot of the times I don't think burnout is about how much you work. I don't think you get burnt out by working 7 days a week. I think you get burnt out by being hypercritical of yourself in those 7 days. In that at least for me, looking at myself, like, and I'm also stating like, yes, if I had to work 7 days a week for a year straight, I'd probably be physically burnt out. I'm just like tired. Like I need a break. Can I please go on vacation? Can I go somewhere where I don't have to even go? I like literally, if I was doing that in coffee, I probably want to go to a place where I wouldn't have access to a coffee shop. Yeah. Cause it'd be triggering. Right. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like sometimes burnout happens not simply because, you work a lot. Like you and I work a lot. Like we push 60 hours a week, between all of our jobs. So it's like, it's not a matter of like working a lot. I think it's a matter of criticism or self-criticism or this implied criticism of like, you're just not doing enough or you're doing like bad or it's, you keep wanting to push. And a lot of the times when you're stuck in that loop of self-criticism is when you feel like you've lost the shine, you've lost the purpose, you've lost the meaning, and you come to a place where you don't want to do the thing anymore.
I think I agree. I definitely agree that it's not a matter of how much you work time-wise. Because I agree. There are definitely times when I know others that work a lot, and that's not really the ingredient that leads to burnout necessarily. You could really be enjoying your life to the max and completely be spending a lot of time in there. But I think I think there's a few components to this, and I think being critical about yourself is definitely a part of it. That does lead to losing the shine and the meaning behind it. I think also other things like just losing sight of what actually really matters to you, or maybe there's just other things that could lead to you losing the meaning behind it, which I think is also a part of it. But I do think there's some being overly critical about yourself is a thing that's interesting. I'm just thinking about it.
That's kind of that was where my head is at when I was thinking about that Reddit post, but also in general burnout, because I also think there's an aspect of burnout. Like one time, not dropping any names again, I had a barista I hired. Love the dude, like super cool guy. Like we got along a lot on a lot of factors, but he was working 20 hours a week and he said he was getting burnt out at his coffee job. And I was like, I'm not saying that that's not true. Could possibly be true. Right. There's a lot of things to unpack on that, because you did mention like sometimes bad management, bad leadership within the context of what you do can 100%. Lead to burnout, even if you're working 10 to 20 hours.
Correct.
So I'm going to also look at it from the perspective, oh, why was he being burnt out? Maybe it was my fault, but I'm also not going to let that like be something that I'm stuck on.
Correct.
But the reason I bring that up is because I've heard people say silly things like, oh, dude, I'm just so tired and burnt out. I'm working full time. And to me, that makes me chuckle. I'm like, dude, like, I don't know, like, find meaning in your work. That's why the word meaning and purpose comes back. It's like, if you're just doing this for a paycheck, that could be the main reason why you feel burnt out. You actually don't want to do this.
Right.
Right.
I agree. And I think, especially in today's world, oftentimes doing what you actually love and what you're passionate about is not really kind of the way that most people have been taught to think about things.
Yeah.
Because I think for a long time it was, in the old way of thinking was, hey, you go to school, you study, you get your degree at something that's going to make you a decent amount of money. Right. And then you climb the corporate ladder and you live this American dream, which didn't quite include, hey, you should actually really enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the things that you do, and if they align with your skill set and your passions and your desires and all this stuff. So, but I really do think that that's a big part of working, is finding something that you really, really enjoy, which I think is actually the thing that can lead to you working way more than the guy who's working 20 hours and getting burnt out. You can work 4x the amount and feel like you're on top of the world. And there's a big difference. And so, and also I think both of us happen to prioritize that really even before Mir quite a bit, to the point where, I know we've had this conversation before where I'm like, I don't know what it's like to have a job at a place you just hate.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
same.
I mean, I've worked, at a berry farm. That was not fun. Didn't last very, it was a seasonal job.
Even when I worked at Deals Only, like, I effing loved it, dude.
Right.
I started 2 or 3 businesses while working on Deals because of Deals Only. Right.
So there's definitely that aspect, but I think speaking of like working 20 hours and being burnt out, is like there's other factors I think that now we're touching up into, like your personal life could be a part of it, like your mental health could be a part of it, where you're feeling burnt out but you're just doing the bare minimum,
right?
And it's like
so, and we've also brought up the idea of work-life balance. Thoughts?
I mean I've mentioned this already on the pod, but I just don't. It's such a dualistic perspective. Like work is getting in the way of your life. And I'm like, I don't know if I just don't know how to see it that way, because I'm like, work is just, for me, the stuff that I enjoy doing. Like, if I didn't have to work, if we're going to see work as something like a hindrance in your life, something that's holding you back from enjoying life. Well, if I didn't have to do that, guess what I would do? I'd probably go pick up a camera or probably go make coffee. Like, that's naturally what I would do.
I agree with that. And I mean, I totally agree with that. Like, I work at, behind the bar, and then I try to, when I can, I try to come home on break. And because Maddie's working at home, I usually make her coffee. Like, was that work or was that life?
Right.
But then the other side, that's one side of the coin. I think the other side is like, I think to a degree, yes, work-life balance is an important facet to prevent burnout, because the reality is, like, when I'm at work, when I'm working, like when I'm roasting coffee, right? That I have to drop off Rain so Mom can watch her so I can roast coffee, because it's really not safe for Rain to be in the roastery with me, nor does Rain want to be in the roastery with me while I'm roasting coffee, right? So I do have to, quote unquote, sacrifice time with Rain in order to work. So you could say, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, you could say that work gets in the way of my time with Rain, or not. I think with having a partner, like, I can't spend time with Maddie when I'm roasting coffee, or I can't spend time with Rain when I'm roasting coffee. So
sure, if you, I'd give it, like, sure, that makes sense. But I think it makes sense in the framework of all 100% of your time.
Yeah.
You think the most balanced way to live is spend 100% of your time with Rain or with your partner.
Right. But
then it's a hindrance.
Yeah.
But
then you have to define things like what's important, and then you have to define life values, and then also like I don't think, quote unquote, that's a spicy topic. I'm not going to say that.
And I
think the most important things in my life are the two people in my life, right?
Right.
They're like nothing can exceed those two people. Like,
right.
My partner and my daughter. Mm-hmm. That's it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that working behind the bar or roasting coffee gets in the way of that. Right. Because it actually enhances those relationships.
Yeah, and it
doesn't get in the way, but on some elements, like, well, it takes time. Like if I could, like, if everything I did was simply just hang out with my two favorite people, like, then that would be awesome. But the reality is, like, I also need, if we want to go on vacation, I need the money to go on vacation, right?
Right.
So it doesn't get in the way. It actually enhances me and going on vacation with my two favorite people.
Yeah, the difficulty if you go down that just too, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, no, that's still like not balanced. Like, I'm like, well, in that case, then if you were to have like a hobby, and let's say you went and played pickleball without them. Yeah. Then you would say, "Oh, dude, that's unbalanced. It's getting in the way." Whoa, but why? I mean, you're just going out and playing, or you go on a run yesterday. You went to the gym. It's like, wait, you don't think that's bad that they're taking, so it's really, But the reality, I think that relationship with all of that, I think is what's potentially some of the mindsets that are actually causing burnout.
Because it's way too dualistic.
And you assume that there is some kind of magic haven balance that you have to strike, where, work-life balance, if you think that, I don't assume that, but if you want to think that, it's always changing.
It's always fluid. Changing. It's not
like, if you take 2 weeks off for vacation and you don't work at all for 2 weeks, is that work-life balance? Yeah. No, it's very unbalanced. Or totally. If you hate your job,
extra shifts.
Yeah. So it's like, I think we have a weird relationship in our culture with those things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know. We talked about a lot, but that was a good little tangent on work-life balance, because I definitely think maybe wrapping our minds around that idea can be a preventative measure to burnout. Maybe. Yeah. Like, I'm just opening up that dialogue. Could help.
I would say I think it would definitely help.
Yeah.
Just may not solve everything, but I think it would be helpful.
And then on a practical sense, I think, again, like, I don't want to hang out on this topic too much because, like, this is going long. But the reality is, like, I think as leaders in the industry, like, if you're a leader in the industry or if you're just new to the industry, I think there is a degree of responsibility to be like, hey, I know for me as a leader in a cafe, as you and I owning a roasting coffee company, you know what I mean? We have a degree of responsibility to say, like, what can we do to prevent the negative aspects of whatever it means to lose your shine, lose your meaning in what you do in coffee? Like, we have responsibility. Even if it's as practical as making sure, like, the baristas are taking their breaks, or making sure the baristas have 2 days off in a row.
For sure.
Or those little things that may be like, oh, come on. No, those are important little aspects to prevent these ideas of burnout or preventing people from losing their shine. It's always fun and sometimes challenging to go on a little vacay and then come back with this new fervor and zeal to be like, I want to dial in espresso.
Yeah.
And then if you work like 13 days in a row and you have to dial in espresso on day 14, you're like, man, I want to wake up and not have to think about my dose or my yield.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not that you don't love it.
Yeah.
It's just like you're getting tired.
Of course.
So as leaders, taking ownership that we play a role to prevent those things. And that is good, because then we have the opportunity to create longevity for our industry as a whole, and create longevity and sustainability for our cafes. Lower turnover rate. When employees are happy, when they don't feel quote unquote burned out, they're going to stick around longer. They're going to have that zeal to come back in, to dial in more coffee, to pour a better latte, or to, mop floors better, whatever. They're going to have that zeal behind it. And it's our responsibility as managers and leaders to figure out what helps prevent burnout.
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah.
Let's wrap her up. Friends, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. Hopefully this got you some food for thought, maybe a different approach or a different thought process. Maybe you're going through some burnout and you're like, oh, maybe that's the underlining cause under that. And maybe this might inspire some ideas of how to get out of it. So that being said, friends, stay rested. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. And as we always say, reflect what's good.
Peace.